D&D is probably more popular now than it ever has been. Between wildly successful actual plays, hours of YouTube videos and podcasts, and of course the accessibility of 5e, it's easier than ever to get into the game. But when your friends or family come to you looking to try it out, or more realistically, you finally get them to agree after lots of prodding, it can be really easy to overlook how confusing and intimidating actually playing a TTRPG can be. In this video, I want to give you some tips that have helped me introduce new players to D&D. Next time you're helping someone wade into the world of tabletop, hopefully you can draw on these for inspiration. Without further ado, let's get started. Before you can play D&D, you need to build a character. Unless you're the DM, of course. But a lot of people stumble at that first hurdle. If you've never done it before, trying to decipher why AC is important, what a proficiency bonus is, or which classes can do what is a real challenge. So when introducing new players to the game, try to simplify character creation for them as much as possible. There are a number of ways that you can do this. One of the easiest is to have them use an online character builder, like D&D Beyond or any number of apps that are out there. Having your phone or computer doing all the math and numbers for you makes things a lot easier to follow. Their choice in class is another area you can help. Rather than just listing off names that they won't understand, trying to figure out what style of play they're looking for and then matching it to a class can be really helpful. For example, you can ask if they imagine their character fighting with weapons, using magic, or a little bit of both. If they respond that they want to be more of a warrior, then you can ask if they prefer to be fighting up close and personal with enemies or striking from the back lines. Similarly, if they opted for magic, you can question where they want to get their magic from: years of study, innate talent, or a pact with powerful forces. Now, instead of having to explain every single class to them, you can just focus on the few that actually matter to what they want. If your new players are truly lost, there's also nothing wrong with just giving them a pre-made character sheet if they're okay with that. Especially if they're beginning to grow frustrated or the process is taking forever, being able to jump right in and play is sometimes best when they're brand new and just want to see what D&D is all about. Just be prepared to walk them through the numbers real quick, and if they end up loving the game, they can always make their own next session. One last note on character creation: be careful starting new players at higher levels. Part of why characters start at level 1 is to make learning new abilities simpler, as each player has to only adapt to a few new spells or moves each level. For each level higher you start your newbie at, that's more and more abilities that they need to learn and try to remember. So just be wary before you throw them into the deep end. You want them to swim, not sink. Playing D&D for the first time can be a little overwhelming. People like to say that you can do anything, and that open-endedness can be really difficult for new players to figure out. When you can do everything, what should you do first? What are you expected to do? With new players, it's usually best to start simple. Rather than dropping them into a city and expecting them to find their own fun, give them a pretty clear goal. How they accomplish it is still up to them, but at least they have a heading rather than just sitting in confused silence or attacking the nearest NPC just to make something happen. You can also give them a couple different options for how to get started. For example, if they need to find a smuggler who's transporting a dangerous artifact, you might have the character who's asking them to retrieve it tell them about the taverns in town that are a bit shadier, where they might be hanging out, or a contact that they have with the Thieves Guild who might know more. Your party will appreciate the nudge, and you can avoid that awkward feeling when nobody knows what to do. Role-playing is fun. Getting into the mind of a character, making choices, moving through the story. I love doing weird voices and coming up with dialogue in the moment. But that wasn't always the case. When I and my friends first started playing, we would usually just describe what people were saying rather than actually act it out. Just because you're comfortable with first-person, involved role-playing doesn't mean your new players will be. It sometimes takes a while for people who are brand new to tabletop games to get over the fact that, yes, it feels a little silly. And truth be told, to really get into character means putting yourself out there in front of friends or sometimes strangers. It may take a while for them to get comfortable letting themselves engage in that way, if ever. Don't force your style of role-playing on any new players. Instead, let them do whatever comes naturally. Rather than isolating them and making them uncomfortable, being open to whatever they feel up to doing will increase their odds of actually having a good time. So long as they're having fun, the more likely they'll actually want to play more. And the longer they play, the more chances they'll have to dip their toes into first-person character work. So be patient. Their inner cedar kid will probably come out eventually. Gameplay in D&D is often broken up into 3 pillars: combat, exploration, and role-playing. In general, I'd recommend trying to hit all 3 in the first session with new players, so you can get a taste of each aspect of D&D. This is especially true for combat. I don't think it's controversial to say that it's the most complicated part of the game. Between attack bonuses, weapon proficiencies, spell save DCs, bonus actions, there is a lot to learn when it comes to combat, and it usually takes new players a couple encounters before they start to actually feel better about what they're doing. The sooner you get them into a fight, the quicker they can start learning what their character can do. It also gets the blood pumping early on. A simple round of combat is a good way to engage the players and let them see that in D&D, danger is part of the fun. Of course, role-playing and exploration are just as important, so I suggest giving them a goal to start out that will eventually involve each of the pillars. Using the smuggler example from earlier, maybe if they check out the Tavern or Thieves Guild, they'll need to barter, persuade, or intimidate their way to the info they need. Afterwards, they come across the smuggler's lair, and they'll have to do some exploration of the hideaway and surrounding areas to try to track him down. On the way, they get ambushed by the smuggler's allies who saw them poking around his place. That very simple quest line has all three pillars, and you can see how your players react to each. Introducing them to each aspect of the game will help you plot out an adventure that's not just simple, but sets up the rest of the game for your new players. In life, actions have consequences. If you push someone, they fall down. If you poke a bear, it'll probably attack. Most DMs try to bring the same logic to their D&D campaigns. When the players act, the world responds. Sure, the party can kill the NPC who's giving them their quest, but the guards get called, bounties are placed, and it may not end up too good for them. When it comes to new players, making sure they understand that the things they choose to do will have real effects on the world of the game is important. If you let every violent impulse go unchecked, you're practically begging for them to become a murder hobo. But at the same time, it's important to remember that a lot of the time, new players may push the boundaries because they're testing the limits of the game, or they may not realize that unlike Skyrim, there's no autosave. Try not to be too harsh on new players, and make sure that they understand exactly what they're doing before letting them pull the trigger. If your player tries to stab someone in broad daylight, it's okay to say, hey, just so you know, there are multiple guards nearby watching the square who will probably see this violent act. Are you sure? And at that point, it's on them, not you. This is doubly true if the reason they're making a mistake is due to mechanics they don't understand. A good example of this is spell components. If a player casts Charm Person on the local lord, the noble's personal bodyguards and attendants are going to see them waving their hands around and reciting the spell's verbal components. Instead of going, gotcha, looks like you messed up, consider that your new player might not even know spell components are a thing, let alone that they could blow their cover. Make sure their mistakes are in character, not out of it. When they do fumble, and they will, not everything has to end in characters being jailed or killed. Sometimes letting them off the hook for a first-time offense is okay, or even better, finding a way to weave it into the plot that's more interesting than 10 guards attack and you die. Maybe some local criminals see what they did and try to blackmail them into something shady. Or another character can help persuade someone that they've deeply offended to let bygones be bygones. Consequences, both good and bad, are important for D&D, but try not to be too heavy-handed with your new players. It can be easy to forget once you've played for a while, but D&D is hard. There are lots of terms and rules and dice the new players have to get their heads around, and as their DM, you can help them along. The best thing you can do for the friends that you introduce to the game is be patient. Explain how to roll for an attack one more time. Read through that tricky spell with them so they fully understand. Let them roleplay at their own speed. Nobody wants to feel out of their depths or like they're dragging the party down. So be patient with new players. They may just end up loving it. Those are some of the things that I've used when introducing new players to D&D, but I'd love to hear what's worked for you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, it would be great if you could leave a like and consider subscribing to the Bard's College. I make videos just like this one about DMing, D&D, and all sorts of similar topics. So if you like this one, you'll probably enjoy the next. But for now, good luck, and remember, crit your players.